The clinking of crystal glasses sounded like quiet detonations in the chandelier-lit silence. Gwendolyn's dining room was pristine, museum-like, as if emotions had no permission to live here. Mahogany walls lined with portraits of ancestral sternness. A table so polished I could see the reflection of the woman I no longer recognized. Gwendolyn lifted her wine glass to Colton, who shoulders so much with grace. I offered a muted smile, but my stomach coiled. She hadn't looked at me once tonight. Not truly. I was the chair beside him, not the woman beside him. Colton shifted in his seat, saying nothing, the perfect statue of indifference. On my right sat my mother, Lorraine, hands clasped, eyes polite but distant. My father, Everett, cleared his throat once, then stopped. I was just saying, I began. Gwendolyn waved her hand. Let the adults talk, dear. The room froze. A slow burn climbed my neck. Lorraine's expression barely shifted, just a strained upward tug of her lips. Everett's eyes fled to the decanter. I looked at the fork in my hand. Not heavy, but my silence how it weighed. Silence isn't safety. It's surrender. She raised her glass again. And here's to Colton's endless patience. Not every man can manage a wife who can't balance a checkbook. Everett blinked. Lorraine sipped. Colton chuckled, soft but present. Underneath the table, my fingers curled. My glass tilted, a near imperceptible tip. I didn't let it fall. Not yet. This isn't about money. It never was. It's about power. There's a kind of humiliation that doesn't sting immediately. It sinks slow, like cold water filling your lungs in silence. Have you ever been erased in a room where your worth should have spoken for itself? I once tried to leave. Years ago. I remember the day. Pulled $3,000 from our joint account. Stuffed it into an old purse, heart pounding. I wasn't running away. I was running toward oxygen. He found out. Of course he did. He snatched the card. Joanna had hissed behind him. Your mother failed you, clearly. At home, Lorraine had once told me, good women keep families together. I nodded then, but what I should have asked was, at what cost? That was the day I learned silence had layers. Some were taught, some were stitched into you. I glanced down at the silver spoon resting beside my plate. My reflection stared back, lips drawn tight, eyes not blank but buried. Still, I remembered. Tonight, after everyone left and the kids were in bed, I logged into the bank. $18,500. Gone. Colton walked past me, humming. What is this? I called out. He turned casually, towel around his neck. I invested it in our legacy. Show me the documents. He raised a brow. You wouldn't understand them. There it was again, that condescension disguised as civility, the smile hiding the leash. A man's fear of a woman's clarity is what makes him hide the truth. He disappeared down the hall. What would you do if someone stole your trust, not your money? The screen glared back at me. Red digits, vanished balance, and a name I had once taken on in faith. The phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. This is Raymond Blackwell, said the voice. I'm the legal representative of Walter Ashcroft. I'm calling to inform you. Per the terms of his sealed estate, you have inherited $47 million in stock assets. They've been placed in a trust, under your name, solely. I stared ahead, breath held. Colton wouldn't touch this. Couldn't. I didn't cry because I was wealthy. I cried because, finally, someone had seen me. Not for being a wife. Not for staying silent. Uncle Walter once whispered at a barbecue, "Years ago, you're the smartest person in this family. They just fear that." He hadn't forgotten me. He had chosen me. I wasn't a shadow. I was the lighthouse they tried to board shut. I closed the laptop. The silence in the house shifted, not louder, just less heavy. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge. The cold light washed over my face, pale blue against my skin. I whispered to no one but the air, "I'm not staying quiet anymore." The envelope was thick, the paper heavy, embossed with gold. Gwendolyn's initials shimmered like a seal of dominion. I held it in my hands longer than necessary, debating whether dignity came from attending or declining. It was an invitation, yes, but not one rooted in kindness. A gala in Westchester, hosted at an exclusive club no one got into without lineage or money, to celebrate Colton's promotion. To Gwendolyn, it was a coronation. For me, it felt more like sentencing. I stood in front of my mirror, zipping up the midnight blue dress that hugged tighter than usual. My fingers trembled slightly as I fastened my bracelet. Every breath reminded me how far I'd come and how much further I had to walk alone. Dignity isn't asking for respect. It's demanding it. Have you ever walked into a room knowing you were about to shrink while everyone else sparkled? That's what this night felt like. The room swelled with strings and champagne. Chandeliers like glass spiders clung to the ceiling, their arms casting light that made everything, every flaw, visible. Colton looked polished, every hair in place. Gwendolyn was radiant, her gown stitched in whispers of old money. I stood at his side, silent, ornamental. A toast was called. Colton rose, a practiced smile on his face. The room quieted. "To success," he said, "to vision, and to the family that supports it." Polite applause. Gwendolyn lifted her glass with regal precision. "And to my son, who supports a wife who still can't balance a checkbook. May she learn dignity before pride." Laughter. Light, careless laughter. The kind that stings worse than a slap. My face held still, but my stomach dropped like a stone. I stared into the flute in my hand, tiny bubbles rising and dying. And just past the glass I caught my reflection, framed by chandeliers, eyes empty. They gifted me a stage to crumble. I nodded politely. "Thank you," I said, my voice smooth. But inside, something fractured. A memory flickered, me, at the kitchen table past midnight, trying to confront Colton about the missing money. "Don't bring emotion into finances," he had snapped. Tonight I stayed, not because I agreed, but because my children would see the pictures tomorrow. And I wanted to control the image, even if I couldn't control the reality. I placed the champagne glass on the table without drinking, a small, silent protest. The server arrived with the bill, discreet but deliberate. Gwendolyn's voice rang again. "Colton will take care of this, of course." A script she'd written before we ever walked through the doors. Without hesitation, I reached into my clutch and pulled out the black Amex Walters Trust had placed under my name. The card slid onto the tray with a quiet defiance. "I got this," I said. Heads turned. Forks paused midair. Gwendolyn blinked. Colton stiffened. "This isn't about money. It's about who has the right to pay when dignity is on the line. What would dignity look like if you stopped borrowing it from others?" We left not long after. The air outside was colder than I remembered. Colton's steps were sharp, shoes striking pavement like accusations. "You embarrassed me in front of my family," he hissed, eyes flashing. Before I could answer, Lily leaned forward from the back seat. "Mom, Did you just humiliate Dad for money? My throat tightened. That landed deeper than any insult Gwendolyn could throw. Back home, Lorraine called. Maybe you shouldn't have done that, she whispered. Sometimes it's better to let things go. I closed my eyes. I did it so that someday Lily won't think silence is the same as love. Hours passed. The house fell into a stillness too brittle to feel safe. I noticed at first the front door, slightly ajar. The air felt wrong. In the kitchen, drawers were pulled out, papers scattered like snow. On the counter, a note written in ink too familiar. Take what's yours. Keep your children. Signed, Lionel. I didn't scream. I didn't call Colton. I took out my phone, photographed everything, sent the files to Anna, the one friend I trusted without question. They can destroy the house, but not the truth. Later that night, I kissed Lily and James on their foreheads, held Lily's hand longer than usual. Back in my room, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Evidence, gala incident / financial, theft / threats. If this was a test of silence, I just opted out. The morning after the note felt colder than it should have. Sunlight stretched across the hardwood floors, soft and quiet, as if afraid to touch anything too loudly. I moved through the kitchen slowly, each opened drawer a new bruise. Papers were displaced, medical records, school documents, receipts from years past. The note was still there, its ink now blurred from where my thumb had pressed too hard. Take what's yours. Keep your children. I didn't panic. I locked the back door first, then the front. Changed the alarm code, reset every password I had from banking to school accounts to the backup cloud storage only Rebecca knew about. Lionel may have known my patterns once, but not anymore. Fear can steal a night, I whispered as I pulled out my laptop. But courage buys the next morning. I opened folders, compiled screenshots, transaction logs, timestamps. I sent them all to Rebecca with a single line. Time to move. What would you protect first if safety was stripped from you? By noon, Rebecca had already filed for a temporary restraining order. The affidavit was precise: emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and direct threat, accompanied by photographic proof and a sworn declaration. It wasn't vengeance. It was protection. By 2, we filed a motion to modify custody. The children weren't safe in a home where drawers were rifled through in the dead of night. I attached statements from the kids' school counselor, screenshots of Lionel's account withdrawals, and most critically, the notarized letter from Uncle Walter affirming the funds transferred to me were personal, independent assets. Colton hadn't seen it coming, nor had Gwendolyn. Their confidence cracked the moment Rebecca's assistant served the documents at Gwendolyn's charity brunch. I wasn't there to see her reaction, but I could imagine the sound of crystalware pausing mid-toast. I'm not building a case to destroy them, I told Rebecca. I'm building a shield to protect my children and my dignity. I didn't expect what came next. Simone, an old assistant from Colton's firm, emailed Rebecca directly with a confession. Attached were PDF exports of emails between Colton and his mother, detailing plans to shift funds offshore and plant rumors of my instability through PR friends. One email simply read, "Her image won't survive this. Let's clean her out before she figures it out." The media pounced. Tech heiress versus social circle. Dark secrets unveiled. Headlines spun fast, but the article was measured, citing the legal filings and Simone's statement. Our neighborhood felt suddenly smaller. Friends I'd shared wine with on porches turned silent. Some unfriended me online without a word. I released a brief public statement. Norag, noak yasashin. Just one sentence stood at the heart. Character isn't what you say behind closed doors. It's what you're willing to defend when the doors open. That's when Colton showed up at the kids' school pickup, leaning against his car like the world hadn't shifted. His voice broke slightly as he said, "Delaney, this got out of hand. We both made mistakes." I met his eyes, steady. The tuition accounts are separated. Their schedule is set. There's no going backward, Colton. Not anymore. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Griffin, Sierra's husband, quietly returned my calls after months of silence. His support dropped off shortly after the media storm, replaced with a half apology, half excuse. "I didn't know how deep it all went," he muttered. I could hear the fear of legal fallout, of reputation, of being next. Sierra came the next evening alone. She didn't knock, just waited on the porch like she used to when we were kids. Her eyes were swollen, not from sleep, but from shame. She handed me an old photo of us, Easter 1991, matching yellow dresses. "I knew," she whispered. I thought if I kept pretending, it wouldn't become true." "I'm not angry," I said, "but I needed you to believe me. Not fix it. Just believe me." She wiped her nose with her sleeve. "How do I help now?" I didn't answer right away. Then I opened my laptop and showed her a folder titled Empower. It was the early framework of a new nonprofit, financial literacy, legal access, and startup funds for women escaping financial coercion. I looked her in the eyes. "Volunteer." She nodded without hesitation. Weeks later, I stood on the beach with the kids, their laughter rising with the tide. The sun broke over the horizon in slow gold. I pressed my toes into the wet sand and closed my eyes. There had been so much taken, but more importantly, there was still so much left to give. I opened a folder titled Everett Maris Fund. It was official. The scholarship in my father's name would provide full tuition and mentorship for girls overlooked, underestimated, and silenced. I was never meant to return to their home, I whispered. I was meant to build another. Sometimes walking away isn't running. It's rising. What would you build if you were finally free? A soft ping came from my phone. One message. One line. Your story gave me hope. I smiled, slow and quiet.